I'm cutting ties with a broke 60-year-old. From now on, consider us strangers. Don't count on me. My son-in-law looked down on me and said those words. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The future I had imagined when my only daughter got married was shattered in that moment. My name is Scarlett, and I'm 59 years old. My husband named David passed away suddenly in an accident just as he was about to retire at 60, 6 years ago. Now, I live in a single-story house that David built, with my 25-year-old daughter, Ruby. It's a small house with a 100-square-foot living room and two 80-square-foot bedrooms, but it was spacious enough for the three of us. Now that it's just the two of us, it feels a bit lonely. We have a small yard, but Ruby uses it as her parking space. Ruby, who got her certification from beauty school and works as a nail technician, just fulfilled her dream of opening her own shop last year. I'm forever grateful to David, who provided for us and supported her dreams. Growing up in a poor family, I decided to drop out of school and work to support my three younger siblings. Luckily, I got a live-in job at a local hotel. I started as a helper, learned the ropes, and worked as an employee. When I was 25, I was introduced to David, a regular customer's son who was 8 years older than me. I was immediately drawn to his kind and sincere nature, and we got married. David worked at a steel mill and had an irregular schedule with night shifts, so after our marriage, I quit my hotel job and became a homemaker. I developed an interest in cooking while preparing daily meals, and with David's support, I went to school and got a chef's license. I was happy to do anything to support him. When Ruby was born and childcare settled down, I started a blog, posting homemade meals and packed lunches. I also jumped on the Instagram trend and continue it as a hobby. Now, 5 years have been passed since David had passed away. I'm excitedly working on a plan before turning 60. One day, Ruby asked me to meet her boyfriend, so we made plans for dinner. When I arrived at the restaurant with her, a good physique man in a crisp suit was waiting. Nice to meet you. I'm Christopher and I'm dating Ruby. Christopher is a real estate agent at his father's company. He helped Ruby when she was looking for her shop. They told me they were thinking of getting married soon. Seeing how kind and considerate he was to Ruby and how happy she looked, I was genuinely happy for my daughter's upcoming marriage. Please take good care of Ruby. Later, during a family meeting, they decided to get their marriage certificate first and have the wedding next year due to preparations. Time flew by, and Ruby married Christopher and moved to their new condo. With Ruby gone, the house filled with memories of our family of three felt a bit lonely. I'm glad I've been preparing for turning 60. Please look forward to it. I whispered to David's photo and prayed. Just then, my phone rang. Hello, Mom? How are you doing? Hearing Ruby's cheerful voice, I couldn't help but smile. Oh, I'm doing well. It sounds like you're doing great too. Your 60th birthday is coming up, right? Let's have dinner together to celebrate. Christopher has reserved a wonderful place for us. Really? I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much. After hanging up, I turned to David's photo, prayed, and spoke to him in my heart. I'm so blessed to have our daughter and her husband celebrate my birthday. It wasn't that I was alone after Ruby got married. I gained another family member in Christopher. I daydreamed about the day I'd be called Grandma when they have children. On my birthday, Rudy led me to a restaurant. It was a famous upscale French restaurant I recognized. In a private room, Christopher, who had arrived earlier, was waiting. Happy 60th birthday, Scarlett. Thank you. Celebrating here is truly special. Seeing my teary eyes, Ruby gave a warm smile. Happy birthday, Mom. I'm sure Dad would be thrilled too. We enjoyed a delicious full-course meal, and at the end, a dessert plate decorated with Happy 60th was served. Ruby even gifted me a red branded pouch for my birthday. Christopher, Ruby, thank you so much for today. The two offered to drive me home. I wanted to give them a small token of appreciation, so I asked them to stop by my house. I was worried if Christopher's large car would fit in my small yard, but it did. The sight made Ruby and me laugh. Perhaps because it was his first time here, Christopher looked around the house uneasily and became silent. I made these sweets. I hope you like them. I served them tea and the treats I had made the day before. Yummy! Mom's treats are always the best. Try some, Christopher. While Ruby enjoyed the sweets, he remained silent, taking a bite without a word. I was a bit concerned about his behavior, but Ruby chatted away. Then, Christopher suddenly asked about David's background and mine. He worked at a steel company from right after high school until he was 60. He was a hardworking and sincere man. I dropped out of school and worked at a hotel, but after getting married, I became a homemaker. I got really into cooking and started posting my dishes and sweets on a blog and Instagram. Have you always lived in this house? Yes, he built it for us before Ruby was born. We had trouble conceiving, and he told me that no matter what, this would always be our home. I see. Christopher seemed deep in thought as he listened. I'll come over next time to taste your home-cooked meals. Of course, you're always welcome. I waved goodbye as they left. As I started cleaning up, the doorbell rang. Opening the door, I found Christopher standing alone. Oh, did you forget something? Christopher stepped in, looking down at me with a stern gaze. There's something I forgot to tell you. What is it? I was completely fooled because we always met outside. Fooled. I had no idea what he was talking about. I never imagined you lived in such a small house, struggling financially. Ruby has her own shop and car, and you always look well kept, so I never suspected. I was surprised you served cheap homemade treats when you invited me over. I tried to recall his odd behavior since he entered the house. If that's how you entertain guests, we could have just gone to a diner instead of an upscale restaurant today. It would have suited your taste better. I'm sorry I tried to match your level without knowing you were poor. You haven't heard anything from Ruby? Ignoring my words, he continued with a tone and attitude that seemed like a completely different person. I need to be selective about who I associate with as the next CEO. Having a relative who dropped out and lives off a pension without working is nothing short of embarrassing. I tried to speak, but no words came out. Just so you know, now that you're 60, consider our ties severed. From now on, we're strangers, so don't rely on us. He looked down on me with those final words and quickly left. What just happened? His shocking words kept replaying in my mind. I collapsed in front of David's photo. What should I do? The son-in-law I thought was a kind and caring young man showed his true, discriminatory nature. It felt like I had been thrown from heaven to hell. That night, I couldn't sleep, debating whether to tell Ruby about our conversation. In the end, I couldn't bring myself to tell her, hoping she'd be treated well. A month later, I moved into my new home. It's a single-story house with 4 bedrooms, a large yard, and parking for 4 cars, built on a plot equivalent to 4 lots. Even for someone like me who doesn't drive, it's conveniently located near a train station and bus stop, with grocery stores and drugstores within walking distance. Yes, the plan I was excitedly working on for my 60th birthday was to fulfill the dream David and I had for our retirement. I wanted to live in a single-story house with a guest room for when my daughter and her family visit, watch my grandchildren play in the large yard, and spend peaceful days with him. Sitting in front of David's photo, which overlooks the garden, I whispered to myself, I wanted to fulfill your dream. Will I end up alone? Though Ruby, unaware of everything, kept in touch, the situation with Christopher remained unchanged. The excitement of preparing for the move felt like a distant memory. Once I settled into my new home, Ruby suddenly contacted me, asking to stay the night. Seeing her enter the house with large bags, I had an idea of what happened but asked, "What's going on?" She explained that Christopher's attitude changed the day after my 60th birthday celebration, and he began to belittle her. He's been out drinking almost every night and coming home late. Just the other day, I found out he's been cheating. It seems that in Christopher's eyes, Ruby had become nothing more than the daughter of a poor family, despite my hopes that he would cherish her. A few days later, Christopher visited our old house, found it empty, and contacted Ruby to ask where we were. She hesitated, glancing at me, but I nodded, signaling her to give him our new address. As soon as he entered our house, he confronted Ruby. "Whose house is this? Have you been cheating on me too?" "This is my house." Seeing me standing behind her, he looked momentarily surprised. We couldn't just stand and chat, so I led them to the living room and served tea. And high-end chocolates, not homemade treats. Seeing the chocolates, Christopher scoffed. "Trying to show off when you're poor will only make your life harder. You must have stretched your budget thin to afford this house." Wasn't he here to apologize to Ruby? As I remained silent, Ruby, usually calm and cheerful, glared at him. "Stop making assumptions about my mother when you know nothing about her. I know she lived in a shabby, cramped house until recently. Your dad worked in a factory and probably didn't earn much. And she, a dropout, just played around making food, right?" It seemed he looked down on us, even in front of Ruby. She began to explain calmly. "My mother started cooking to support my father. Her blog, where she posted her recipes, became popular, leading her to publish several books and even supervise kitchenware production. She's a renowned culinary expert with various certifications." He looked at me, his eyes wide in disbelief. "Mom never showed her face in the media to ensure our family's privacy. Still, even after retiring from her culinary career, she has tens of thousands of followers on her hobbyist social media. To think you called her cooking just a hobby. Well, she just got lucky and became a topic of discussion. After all, she's just an ordinary person with a husband who had a low-paying factory job." I couldn't let his last comment slide. "I don't care what you say about me, but I won't let you insult my husband who worked hard for our family. He worked at a major steel factory and became a factory manager in his 40s. His annual salary exceeded $100,000, and we lived comfortably." $100,000. He looked back and forth between Ruby and me, disbelief evident on his face. Ruby nonchalantly sipped her tea. "I was told by my husband to spend my earnings however I wanted, but I saved everything. After he passed away shortly after retiring, his untouched retirement funds and even the insurance payout were left." "Why did you live in that old house for so long then?" He seemed genuinely puzzled. "That house was a special place he built for me. It's filled with memories and sentiments that money can't buy." Ruby, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke up. "My parents never splurged on themselves. But they made sure I had a variety of experiences. They covered my tuition, extracurricular activities, and even taught me table manners during our annual trips and restaurant visits." "You mean like at a diner, right?" Ruby, clearly annoyed by his condescending tone, let out an exaggerated sigh. "Actually, the restaurant we celebrated my mom's 60th birthday at is the same place where the three of us dined for my dad's 60th. That's the kind of restaurant I'm talking about." The reason I almost cried when we went to that restaurant was because Ruby chose a place filled with memories with David. "But you were looking for a cheap rental for your nail salon, right?" "Yes, because the nail salon is my dream. I wanted to achieve it on my own, without relying on my parents. That's all there is to it. The only luxury I had was the car my dad bought me as a graduation gift." Christopher, who thought he knew everything, instead of apologizing, accused Ruby as she finished her tea. "Why did you hide such important information?" "Why does my parents' wealth have anything to do with marrying me? I knew my mom never bragged, so I showed you her social media. You would have seen she's a renowned chef. I didn't hide anything." Christopher was at a loss for words, glancing at me for support, but I pretended not to notice. Then, he suddenly changed his tone and started making excuses. "I have a responsibility to choose who I date as the next CEO. How can I introduce someone from a poor background as my family? If you had told me everything from the start, I wouldn't have misunderstood or cheated. Ruby, I promise I won't cheat again. Please come back." Ruby chuckled. "That's funny. You were the one who cut ties with my mom." At her words, Christopher and I both looked at her in shock. Why would I go back to someone who looked down on our family, cut ties with my mom, and even cheated? "No. Scarlett, I apologize for my misunderstanding. The sight of him, who had been so arrogant just moments ago, now expressing his apology was comical. I calmly told him, "You did cut ties with me. Remember telling me we're strangers now and not to rely on you? Don't worry, I have no intention of being your mother-in-law again." "No way!" He looked defeated, but I couldn't find the words to comfort him. "Please leave for today. Tell your parents the truth and get their approval for the divorce." With no room for argument against Ruby's firm stance, Christopher left. "Mom, I'm so sorry for all the pain I caused. It's all because I married him." Ruby, tears in her eyes, held my hand. I gently grasped her hand. "Don't worry about it. I'm so glad you're my daughter." Ruby had overheard our conversation that day. She knew I was keeping silent about cutting ties with Christopher for her sake. Seeing his attitude, she decided on a divorce and left the house. A few days later, his parents came to apologize with him in tow. Ruby and I knew it wasn't their fault, so we declined any compensation in the divorce proceedings and quickly finalized the divorce. Fortunately, we hadn't announced the wedding to our acquaintances since it was planned for a later date. "I'm home." "Hello, good to see you again." A year has passed since then, and Ruby brought home a man she recently started dating. "Well, it's been a while. Dinner's just ready, come on in." The man was Nicholas, Ruby's childhood friend whom I knew well. He had always been close to Ruby without any prejudice. When Ruby got divorced, he was there to listen and support her. Their unchanged bond and mutual trust warmed my heart. I sincerely hope for Ruby's happiness and want to watch over her from a distance.